Most people think a mortgage is a 25 to 30-year sentence. You sign the papers, you shake the banker's hand, and you just accept that you're going to be making payments until you're in your 60s, maybe even your 70s. And frankly, that's exactly what the bank is counting on. Today, I've got my good friend and realtor partner, Angelo, on with me. And this is a series that we're starting that's called Real Success Stories, where we share real life stories of clients that we've helped together. Angelo,
Thanks for
welcome.
having me, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, super exciting. We're talking about John and Wendy today. And this is a story that I've been wanting to tell for a while. It was super impactful to them. They were, after it was all said and done, they were so happy that they ended up talking to you. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it was a really, really great experience for them. And honestly, is maybe cheesy as this sounds, like this genuinely changed their lives. So yeah, let's jump right into it.
Well, why don't we set the scene first? Tell me a bit about John and Wendy. Who are they?
Yeah, so John and Wendy, they're in their early to mid 30s. John's couple years younger than Wendy is, and young professionals. They both work good jobs, went to school, make a decent income. They bought a townhouse a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and they talked to me earlier this year about the idea of upsizing because they've been in their townhouse for 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. And it was great at the time, but it it started to feel a little bit small, and they were in a position where, hey, they wanted to look at making that next step up because of the way that the market is right now. And ultimately, we ended up selling their townhouse for pretty close to what they paid for it, which was one criteria for them, and then ended up buying a bigger and almost brand new townhouse in a great area where they wanted to be, for about 1.2 million.
Mm. So making that move from 6 to 1.2, um, the mortgage needs had to grow too, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a consideration, is that they didn't want to, while they were upsizing their life, they didn't want to just like balloon their payments without having an actual strategy and an actual plan. Because, I mean, they it's like the typical trap, right? Like people get, better job, they get a raise, or they get, they're in better financial shape, and then they go and buy the newer car, the better house, the better whatever, and they're not in actually any better position. They just like have shinier stuff, which is great, I guess, but it's not really not really the,
You're right, though. A lot of people increase their expenses to meet their new lifestyle, right? So if you have an increase in your income, a lot of people raise their expenses and they're really no better off, right? But that's like, so they were naive about what they're taking on. They knew that going from, they had a mortgage that was in the low 400s and they were going up to the mid 700s, like 755 was their mortgage total. But that's actually kind of what started the conversation with me. Because Angelo, you brought them my way and they weren't just looking for a rate, they're asking bigger questions, right?
they were. So actually, I'll take a half step back. Maybe when we first started talking, they initially they were just like, look, we're just going to go with our bank. We already have our mortgage there. Like, it's easy. They have our stuff. They know us, whatever. And, I told him, like, look, hey, by all means, if you want to work with your bank, fill your boots. Like, there's no issue with that, as long as you're happy with the payments and the structure and all that kind of stuff. But, and this is something I try to do every time, I recommended that they speak with you first, just for a second opinion.
Mhm.
Look, Chris is able to do some things that the banks aren't going to even talk to you about, let alone have the ability to do. And you guys are in a sort of a situation where it might be beneficial for you for your long-term planning and life goals and retirement and investment, like the whole financial plan. It might be a better idea just to have that conversation first before you sign any paperwork or anything, just to see what other options are out there. Because, hey, sure, the bank can give you a rate, that's fine, but they're still just setting you up to pay a mortgage for the next 25, 30 years, right?
Well, that's exactly it. Because the bank had offered them a really great rate, and that's the impression a lot of people have is, I'm supposed to help negotiate a better rate. Maybe convenience leads to the decision, or its rate is often the where we started the conversation with a lot of our clients. And their bank had actually offered them a really great rate. It was generally competitive, no complaints about that. But when they asked the bank, okay, so like, how do you pay this off faster? They want to also be able to build wealth for the retirement too. What did the bank say?
Make extra payments, do biweekly payments, do accelerated biweekly. Like it was essentially just pay more money. Like there wasn't really any kind of strategy. It was just, hey, do one of the things that you hear all over the place as far as paying off your mortgage faster. That was really all they got back from the bank. Because I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's in the bank's best interest for them to just keep paying their mortgage, right?
Well, of course, and like technically that's not wrong. Pay more money, like that's not improper advice. But it's just not a strategy. There's no there's no plan behind it. There's no intentionality. It's just grind it out and hope for the best, right? And that's kind of what I kept coming back to when I looked at their file. Like John being in his early 30s, Wendy was closer to 40. If they follow that traditional 30-year timeline, the bank set them up. They set them up with, well, even with a great rate, Wendy is nearly 70 when the mortgage is paid off, and John is in his early 60s. Like that hit different when we actually said that out loud.
Yeah, I remember when they had their initial call with you, and after we chatted afterwards, and they were like, "Oh my God, we didn't even really think about it that way." Like
Yeah.
the idea of, yeah, we're going to be paying this until we're, I mean, we're going to have to keep working to keep paying this until we're, 70 to retire. Like that was, I guess that, yeah, that realization just didn't really hit when they were initially talking to the bank, right? And like you said, yeah, they focused on the rate initially at first, like basically everybody does, and
Yeah.
they missed the forest for the trees, right?
Totally. For us, we're not considering just age, of course. Like it was the total cost. And that's something like we want to help improve people's understanding around. It is one thing, but when you actually break down the cost difference between rates, it's a negligible drop in the bucket, right? But on a $750,000 mortgage, following their bank's plan, and even rounding up their payment to be a little bit more aggressive, they'd still be on that interest rate treadmill for 27 years and 7 months, so almost 28 years. And over that time, they pay $432,000 in interest on top of their principal amount they're borrowing. So that $750,000 mortgage was going to cost them over $1.1 million in real payments. That's before taxes, that's before your maintenance or anything else that life inevitably will throw their way.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. They $500,000 in interest. Like that's
It's wild. But really, it's by design. Okay. Right. The rate is the bait. The 30 years it takes to pay off is where the bank makes its money.
so. What's actually different about this strategy that you set up for them? Like let's kind of walk through that, because I know even though you've explained it to me 1,000 times, it's still hard to wrap your head around. Because again, we all of us really are just in that mind frame of like, just get a mortgage and just you pay it over 25, 30 years, and you just keep paying it. And then, hey, if you end up getting more money down the road, sure, you can like lump sum pay it off or whatever. But explain kind of the process. What was the strategy?
We built a strategy around what the real goals were. And the goals were really clear. They didn't want to be in their 60s, even pushing 70s, still making mortgage payments. You said that before, right? They wanted to retire and retire well, right? They wanted to be able to invest and not sacrifice everything to the mortgage and have nothing left over for the future. They wanted both.
Yeah.
So like for us as a mortgage strategist versus being a traditional mortgage broker who is like rate of payment, that's just mirroring and mimicking what the bank does. But we structured the mortgage, and structure is paramount when it comes to how you can attack the principal differently. Accelerated their payoff significantly just using their existing income and their existing disciplined spending just to hit the principal differently. We made their mortgage work for them ultimately instead of for the bank. And here's the key thing, that they're paying dramatically more each month. It meant they were paying smarter.
So, because yeah, the payment basically was the same, like with the strategy that you set up.
Yeah.
The payment's the same, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Actually, it was a little less, frankly. Right. So we improved their cash flow. But most people here pay it off faster and assume that means they'll be house rich and cash poor, but that's not what we built for them, right? Not at all. The goal was always sustainability. We weren't asking them to eat rice and beans for a decade, right?
Yeah.
We were asking them to be intentional with how their payments flowed. And ultimately, that comes down to how their mortgage is structured. So we take a traditional mortgage, we basically flip it on its head, right? And turned it around where their income and the regular spending was going to attack the principal automatically without them having to radically change their lifestyle or without them having to live like a monk, right?
Yeah, and I mean that really, again, like most people, that was a concern for them, right? Like, just the idea of, hey, we can make extra payments or do accelerated biweekly or whatever, like that's great. But ultimately, that's just taking more of your monthly income and throwing it at your mortgage, which, like you said, you don't want to have to live like a monk for 30 years just to pay off your mortgage. Like that's silly. That doesn't really work. And frankly, it's not sustainable for most people. Like at some point,
Yeah.
most people want to take a vacation or do something fun or whatever, right?
Just live your life, right?
Yeah.
Right. But instead of paying their mortgage in 28 years and spending almost $500,000 in interest, they're now set up by restructuring it and setting it up to really complement and benefit their double income, strong household income, and their disciplined spending. They're now set up to be mortgage free in 8 years and 11 months.
Crazy for me.
I know, right?
Than 10 years. Like you're going from 30 years to less than 10. That is wild. That is wild. And not to mention the actual dollars that they're saving. So what was the actual dollar amount? Because it was just shy of $500,000 in interest payments, like with the traditional mortgage.
Yeah. Now they're on pace to pay only 175,000.
That's crazy. So that's like 250 some odd $1,000 in saving, a
Yeah.
quarter million
200,
dollars in savings.
$257,000 in interest gone. The money stays in their pocket. And instead of waiting until they're nearly 70, they are done with their mortgage before John even turns 43.
That is just phenomenal. I mean, just think for a second, like how long it would take an average person to save $250,000 from their salary.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, if you're at a 50% tax bracket, that you have to earn $500,000 to be able to afford that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention expenses and everything else, right?
That's exactly. And it's not found money from some investment scheme either. That's just interest that they're not paying to the bank,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So from with this strategy, so they're able to pay it off way earlier. I mean, I imagine you guys spoke about what to do afterwards as well, as far as like reinvesting that money or what. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's where it gets even better because once that mortgage is done, not even 9 years in, they take that exact same mortgage payment they've been making and they redirect it into investments where they're now paying themselves instead of the bank. And if they do that, if they take that payment and put it straight into investments from the time the mortgage is paid off, by the time their original 30-year mortgage would have been done, they're looking at investment savings over 2 million.
I mean, that's okay. That
That's not bad.
that's
Yeah.
pretty okay. That's a paid off house that is in the meantime appreciated and whatever, right? Like that's yeah, that's
That's just redirecting the savings the mortgage you would have been paying, the one you were already going to sign on the dotted line for with the bank. Now you have the better part of 20, 21 years here left to invest all of the payments that you were making that you would have lost to interest and making the bank rich. Now you're actually able to provide for you and your family. And for John and Wendy, they're able to do that for themselves and provide for a much more comfortable retirement because that's the money that most people don't have in their day-to-day budget is their mortgage payment chews up a good chunk of that.
that's wild, man. Again, looking at the numbers, like it's almost unbelievable. And if I watched a video of two semi-handsome gentlemen talking about it, a hard time believing it. But yeah, it like actually seeing the numbers, it's crazy what this can do. So I guess like what's the takeaway here? Like what's the lesson to be learned for somebody who is sitting down and watching us talk about this?
Yeah, really, the lesson is, and I want to be direct about this, getting or trying to negotiate the lowest rate and the lowest payment, that's playing the game the bank wants you to play. Because when you follow the bank's structure, the bank makes an enormous amount of money off of you. That's the business model. There's no wonder that they're helping you, that they want you to focus on today and tomorrow, the rate and the payment, and overlook the timeline and the volume of interest that you will be paying over a 25 or 30-year period. The bank's not your financial advisor. They are a lender. And there's nothing wrong with that. but you just need to understand who you're sitting across the table from. And John and Wendy, they had a great rate offer from their bank. It was a genuinely good rate, and it still would have cost them $432,000 in almost 28 years. That's not a bad bank. That's just what the traditional model looks like. And what we did was look for options that worked for them and their goals, not the bank's goals, theirs.
And really, I mean, from what you're saying, like that's the big thing, right? Is looking after yourself first. Like taking that opportunity to have that discussion before you get into that commitment, before you get into well, the at least the 3 to 5 year commitment, but the further to that, the 30-year mortgage term, like that, having that discussion ahead of time is really important to see if you could do something like that. Because I mean, Matt, can you, like, for the average person, can you imagine what finding $250,000 would do?
I know. How do they, for sure. And in the process, you're right. And thank you for that, because I appreciate you advocating for me and putting me in touch with John and Wendy so that I can help them, you know, achieve this kind of level of success. Because really what they realized, and some feedback I got from them, was they realized that the mortgage isn't really a checkbox. It's not a honey-do list here in the transaction of buying a home, right? It's the strategy. It is the strategy. And it's the most powerful financial tool most Canadian families will ever have. And most people never treat it that way. They look at it like debt, and they look at it like it's a commodity. I need a lower price so that I can free up some more money and use that freedom and pay off my mortgage years and years sooner. While the traditional path, it's a 28-year sentence. It's the average Canadian is 25 to 30 years, right? But if you restructure how your cash flow and your spending habits work for you, these are the success stories that we're able to share with more and more Canadians.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, the takeaway, and this is something that we talk to our clients about all the time, is, yeah, you have to have a strategy. Like, you can't just jump into it and like you said, just check the old mortgage checklist off. Like, having a strategy for this, what is, most people's biggest financial asset. Like, you really shouldn't go into that just talking to the first bank that you talk to, and be like, yep, okay, cool, great, I've got a plan. Because you don't have a plan. You just, again, like you said, you got a rate and a payment, and that's a part of it, sure, but that's not actual strategy. That's just
That's just random payment, right? That's looking at today and tomorrow and looking over the next 3 to 5 years and not really taking into consideration the bigger picture, which is how is this working against me, or what can I do to shorten that timeline? The traditional advice falls so short, and the traditional structure doesn't really accommodate, a flowing change. So it's something that we always do with our clients when we recommend this structure. For one, we have some guardrails we put in place. We have a custom intake form to make sure that their cash flow would make sense and has generally good results with this product. But then in the moment of guiding them through and sharing the screen on a Teams call with them, I actually do one extra where I stress test their expenses. So it's really a product of your income and your cash flow, which is your income that comes in and your expenses that go out, and what that delta between those two numbers is. That really is the catalyst for why this product works so well for so many. I always stress test as well in the moment to show them that if your expenses grew by 20% per month and stay there, does it blow up the plan? Does it blow up the timeline? Do they go from 8 years and 11 months to 18 or 28 years? Not at all. If their expenses grow by 20% and their income doesn't come up with it, their timeline went from like just under 9 years to a little over 10.
yeah.
It just shows you that the structure accommodates real life changes along the way. But we always want to make sure that we show that if you overlook some expenses or you didn't capture them in the intake form, for one, that stress test would allow us to capture that, but also allows us to kind of future pace what your life might look like if things got out of hand or your expenses grew just because costs grew along with life.
So
Right.
it's nice to know that, yeah, you don't have to be perfect, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like, you're not handcuffed.
Okay.
Yeah, if you slip up a little bit, if you have a surprise expense come up, because hell, who hasn't had, like, all of a sudden your roof goes or your hot water tank blows up or whatever.
Or a vacation that you've been putting off for years that you actually wanted to take. Like, you don't have to like live small in order to have large results.
That's awesome. So now, again, like you said, this strategy isn't going to work for everybody. So I guess the important step for somebody who is considering this is probably to get in touch with you and have a discussion. I know, like I said, when we work with our clients, we always recommend that. But for somebody who isn't working with me or my partner Liam, I guess the first step for them would be to sit down with you and kind of have that initial chat, or what does that look like?
Yeah, if you went to talktocchris.ca, then you can book a time on my calendar and we'll have 30 minutes together where it's just you and I. And we'll walk through your plan, ask all the right questions, get an idea of where your cash flow looks like, and but really sit with you as to what your overall bigger plans and what the bigger picture looks like for you. And then customize the advice and customize the plan for you. This product and strategy happened to work out really well for John and Wendy, but it's not a good fit for people who are living paycheck to paycheck or spending every dollar that they earn, or even worse, dipping into credit cards every month, right? But even in that scenario, we're always here to serve. We're always here to help, and we want to be able to guide you and give you some advice that if you just need a little helpful hand to turn that boat around, we're here. We're here for you for that too.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. And honestly, on behalf of John and Wendy, like I said, the discussion that I had with them after their call with you was awesome. Like they were so stoked that they sat down and talked to you, and it's cool to see the the actual life changing thing happen to these people, right? Like, I mean, again, you basically found them $250,000 and 21 odd years of like it's like yeah, that's awesome. So thank you again for helping out with them, and they were extremely pleased with how things turned out.
It's my honor. It's my pleasure. I'm super grateful for the opportunity. And really, you just spoke to my why. I'm not here to help you save a buck or two. Like that's really the small savings you'd have if you're negotiating a slightly lower rate per 100,000 per month. It's a buck 23, right? If you're trying to save 0.05% on your rate, hardly the same need to be the catalyst for mortgage ed or financial freedom. We're here to help save a decade or two. And a lot of the times it's how you structure your cash flow and how you structure your.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for joining.